Every autumn, across countless campuses, a familiar scene unfolds: families, brimming with pride, young people on the cusp of boundless possibility, embracing the promise of a new future. It is a moment steeped in hope, a tangible threshold between childhood and the world of adult dreams. For Sarah and David Albright, dropping off their daughter, Clara, at Crestwood University was just such a pilgrimage, a celebration of her ambition, her infectious laughter, her vision of studying the ocean. They left her amidst the bustle of new beginnings, confident in the protective embrace of a vibrant campus community, their hearts full of a quiet joy. Yet sometimes, these ordinary thresholds conceal a sinister inversion, where the very act of stepping into a brighter tomorrow can become a fateful passage into the unknown. What if the most hopeful farewell is not a beginning at all, but an ending too profound to comprehend? Could the quiet hum of a college dorm conceal a silence far more unsettling, a void that swallows a life whole? And what desperate act shattered the serene facade of that hopeful weekend, leaving only unanswered questions in its wake? The late summer sun, a benevolent presence in a sky of cloudless blue, draped long golden shadows across the tree-lined streets of Willow Creek, a town often romanticized for its quiet charm. For the Albright family, this particular August Saturday transcended a mere weekend. It was a profound rite of passage. Clara Albright, 18 and vibrant, her spirit as boundless as the deep-sea currents she yearned to study, stood on the precipice of her freshman year at Crestwood University. Her childhood room at home, now neatly cleared of its youthful clutter, lay in silent testimony to a chapter closed, a future eagerly anticipated. Clara, an aspiring marine biologist, had discovered her passion amidst the hushed wonder of aquariums and through a cherished collection of seashells that once gleamed on her windowsill. Her parents, Sarah and David, had steadfastly nurtured this dream. Sarah, an art teacher by profession, had orchestrated every facet of Clara's college move, from the meticulously organized dorm boxes to a comforting batch of homemade oatmeal raisin cookies, a small edible anchor to home. David, an engineer known for his precise mind and often quiet demeanor, allowed a tender, uncharacteristic smile to play on his lips as they navigated the bustling walkways of Crestwood University. The campus itself, a blend of venerable Gothic architecture and sleek modern design, pulsed with a collective hum of fresh starts, a palpable energy born of nervous excitement and burgeoning hope. Their journey had unfolded with the familiar bittersweet rituals of departure, the car packed to the brim, a symphony of excited chatter, and Sarah's occasional lingering glance. As they moved through the vibrant throng of students and parents, the air imbued with the scent of mown lawns and intellectual promise, Clara's laughter, clear and uninhibited, carried on the breeze. It was the pure, crystalline sound of joy, unfettered, a declaration of burgeoning potential. Together, they transformed her compact dorm room, a once impersonal space, into a budding haven. A vibrant coral reef poster was the first thing to go up, an immediate and colorful testament to Clara's chosen path. That evening, with the last box unpacked and the final goodbyes approaching, the Albrights shared a final meal at a lively university diner. Burgers, fries, and shared stories filled the air, an unremarkable moment that would soon be etched into their memories with haunting precision. Clara, her eyes bright with enthusiasm, detailed her class schedule, recounted anecdotes of new acquaintances, and spoke of the countless opportunities unfolding before her. Sarah's hand rested on Claire's for a beat longer than usual, a mother's unspoken acknowledgement of her daughter stepping fully formed into her own life. David, pragmatic as ever, offered a final piece of advice on academic planning, yet his gaze fixed on Clara betrayed a profound, heartfelt pride. As they stood by the car, ready for their departure, the university lights twinkling against the deepening twilight, Clara embraced them both tightly. "I love you," she affirmed, her voice resonating with newfound confidence. "Don't worry, I'll be absolutely fine." Her parents watched her walk back towards her dorm, a slender silhouette against the campus glow, a vibrant young woman confidently embracing the world, never imagining the true nature of the path she had just taken. The text message, innocuous in its brevity, arrived late Saturday night. "Just got back to the dorm. Going to bed. Love you." It was a standard digital sign of precisely the kind of reassurance a newly independent daughter offers her parents. Sarah and David Albright read it, a final comforting thought, before they surrendered to sleep in their now empty home in Willow Creek. Unbeknownst to them, it marked the final direct contact they would ever have with Clara. Sunday morning dawned with an almost cruel serenity. Sarah, recalling Clara's tendency to sleep late, waited until noon for her first call. The phone rang, then clicked into voicemail. "She's likely exhausted. After an exciting day," Sarah reassured herself, a fleeting smile touching her lips. David, absorbed in the morning paper, offered a dismissive grunt. But as the hours relentlessly marched onward into the afternoon, and a second attempt was met by the same automated greeting, a subtle, cold unease began to curdle within Sarah. An hour later, her third call vanished into the digital ether. The initial placid certainty fractured, revealing a raw, nascent thread of apprehension. "She still hasn't called back," David, Sarah articulated, her voice edged with a tension she struggled to suppress. David, usually a steadfast anchor of calm, frowned, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Her battery must be dead, or she's out exploring with new friends. Forgot her charger," he reasoned, but the conviction in his tone was conspicuously absent. Both parents understood Clara's meticulous habits. Her phone was an extension of herself, rarely uncharged or out of reach. As the sun began its slow, inevitable descent, painting their living room in hues of fading warmth, the profound silence emanating from Crestwood University became an oppressive weight smothering the peace of their home. Each unanswered ring, each automated redirection to voicemail chipped away at their composure, unearthing a gnawing, cold dread. The return drive to Crestwood University felt less like a journey and more like a harrowing plunge into the depths of a waking nightmare. The earlier euphoria of dropping off their daughter had dissipated, replaced by a suffocating urgency. Every mile marker that flashed by served as a stark, chilling reminder of Clara's unnerving silence. The vibrant campus, once a beacon of hopeful promise, now loomed with an unsettling, almost sinister aura. Sarah gripped her phone, her knuckles stark white against the dark casing, her gaze rigidly fixed on the asphalt ahead. David drove with a grim, almost desperate determination, pushing the speed limit, his jaw clenched, the relaxed father of yesterday, consumed by a man bracing for the unbearable. They practically burst into Clara's dorm building, their strained pleas to the resident assistant bordering on frantic. The ascent up the staircase to her floor felt impossibly protracted, each step a leaden weight. Reaching room 312, they found the door not just unlocked, but slightly ajar, a small dark aperture that silently screamed a profound alarm. Sarah pushed it open with agonizing slowness, a choked gasp escaping her lips. The room was meticulously undisturbed precisely as they had left it barely 24 hours prior. The bed neatly made with the quilt Sarah had lovingly chosen bore no indentations, no telltale rumple of recent occupancy. Clara's new textbooks stood in perfect stacks on her desk. And there on her nightstand, silently charging, lay her phone, its screen dark. Beside it, her university ID card and her small leather wallet containing her bank cards and a few dollars cash remained untouched. The scene offered no explanation of a casual departure, no hint of a hasty exit. It was a tableau of absolute baffling absence. No message, no note, no indication of where she had gone or why. Her most essential items, the very necessities one would never willingly leave behind, were present accounted for, and utterly bereft of their owner. This was not merely the silence of an empty room, but the chilling void left by a missing life, a stark and terrifying contradiction to the last simple words, "I'll be fine." Clara Albright had not just stepped out. She had inexplicably vanished, spirited away from the supposed safety of her new life, leaving behind only an unyielding, heart-stopping enigma. The initial report to campus security, often dismissed as parental anxiety during the hectic drop-off weekend, was swiftly reevaluated. The Albrights' strained faces, etched with a raw, undeniable terror, starkly contradicted any notion of a simple misunderstanding. Paired with the untouched dorm room, Clara's neatly arrayed essentials, screaming of an unnatural absence, the situation escalated from concern to crisis in a matter of frantic moments. By late Sunday afternoon, the local Willow Creek Police Department had dispatched Detective Miles Corbin, a veteran of countless missing persons cases whose steady, unflinching gaze bore the weight of profound experience. Corbin's arrival instilled an immediate, sobering shift in the campus atmosphere. His eyes, the color of storm-gray flint, swept over the immaculate dorm room, registering every detail: the perfectly made bed, the inert, charging phone, the casually discarded ID and wallet. He required no verbal confirmation to grasp the gravity. The room's carefully preserved order paradoxically communicated an undeniable chaos. This was not the scene of a spontaneous runaway or a youthful adventure gone awry. This was something far more insidious. He spoke to Sarah and David Albright with a deliberate, calm cadence, extracting Clara's last known movements, her nascent friendships, her college routine. His professional composure, a necessary shield against their burgeoning grief, was subtly tempered by the unhurried, almost gentle nature of his questions, offering a fragile anchor in their spiraling panic. Within hours, Crestwood University was transformed. The once vibrant hum of student life receded, replaced by the purposeful, methodical movements of law enforcement. Uniformed officers fanned out, orchestrating a meticulous grid search that spanned residential halls, hushed library aisles, bustling athletic fields, and the campus's more secluded wooded fringes. K-9 units, their handlers moving with quiet, urgent efficiency, worked to cut through the myriad human scents. Every bulletin board previously adorned with welcome messages was now emblazoned with missing person posters. Clara's bright, hopeful smile, a heart-wrenching contrast to the grim text beneath. This exhaustive initial sweep yielded nothing, solidifying a deepening sense of foreboding that permeated the university grounds, thick and palpable. As the last vestiges of daylight bled from the sky, painting the heavens in hues of bruised violet and charcoal, Sarah Albright, stood before a hastily assembled group of local news reporters. Her face, a raw testament to terror and agonizing grief, seemed to visibly tremor. Yet, as she spoke, an unexpected strength surfaced her voice, finding clarity through the pain. "Please," she implored, her wide, desperate eyes sweeping across the camera lenses. "If anyone at all has seen Clara, just call the police. She's a good kid. She is my entire world." Her words, broadcast across every local channel, ripped through the community, instantly converting the festive energy of drop-off weekend into a collective shiver of fear, searing Clara's image into the public consciousness. Back at the temporary command post, established within a campus meeting room, Detective Corbin, his brow furrowed in concentration, meticulously reviewed the initial incident reports. The complete absence of forced entry, no discernible signs of a struggle within the dorm room, and the untouched personal effects all converged to suggest a chillingly deliberate abduction. It was a puzzle with critical pieces, missing a dark tapestry woven with threads of calculated secrecy. He instructed Detective Anya Sharma, his sharp junior partner, to begin the exhaustive process of interviewing every student on Clara's floor and every resident assistant. The painstaking hunt for a single crucial detail had begun a fragile lead that might finally pierce the profound, ominous silence surrounding Clara Albright's vanishing. The meticulous door-to-door canvass of Clara Albright's dorm floor yielded frustratingly little, primarily nervous chatter and shock from students barely acquainted with the spirited marine biology freshman. Yet amidst the scattered vague recollections, a crucial detail materialized from Lily Chen, Clara's roommate. Lily, a petite young woman whose initial college excitement had visibly curdled into anxiety, spoke of an informal off-campus welcome party held Saturday night, just hours after Clara's parents had departed. It was a predictable, lively gathering at an upperclassman house, a few blocks from campus, a typical freshman introduction to collegiate social life. Lily recounted that Clara had joined her a brief foray into the new social scene. They had shared some laughter, navigated the crowded rooms. But Clara, perhaps overwhelmed or simply tired by the day's events, had decided to depart early. "She mentioned she was exhausted," Lily explained, her voice hushed. "Around 11:30, I think. She just wanted to head back to the dorm." This seemingly innocuous detail immediately arrested Detective Miles Corbin's attention. Clara's last text message to her parents, reassuring them she was just getting back to the dorm, had been sent well after midnight. The typical 20-minute walk from the party house could not account for that significant time gap. This temporal discrepancy, a subtle yet critical fault line in the unfolding narrative, nagged at Corbin with the persistence of a low, disquieting hum. It subtly shifted the missing person case from a straightforward search to something more convoluted, more shrouded in shadow. Why the delay? What prompted the understated deception to her parents? Each question multiplied, deepening the nascent sense of profound unease. Corbin dispatched Detective Anya Sharma to meticulously scour campus security footage, a laborious task involving hours of nocturnal surveillance. After painstaking review, a grainy, flickering image emerged: Clara, unmistakably identifiable by her distinctive green cardigan, walking purposefully alone, a lone figure against the sprawling campus, her path leading directly toward her dorm. The timestamp confirmed her passage through the main campus loop around 11:45 p.m. Then, with chilling abruptness, the frame went dark. The camera's electronic gaze terminated at the periphery of the old campus perimeter, where a stretch of rarely used maintenance road and dense foliage created a formidable blind spot, a gaping, unyielding void in the digital record. The flicker of optimism that had accompanied the discovery of the footage quickly dissipated, replaced by a surge of profound frustration. The video intended to illuminate Clara's path, instead amplified the mystery, transforming a potential avenue to answers into an impenetrable barrier. It confirmed her last visible trajectory, yet left her fate suspended in the unyielding darkness beyond the lens. Back in Clara's undisturbed dorm room, the meticulous, almost sterile order remained a stark sentinel. The unruffled bed, the untouched personal effects, the fully charged phone resting placidly on the nightstand, each detail eloquently testified to a series of non-events. There were no signs of a struggle, no disarrayed furniture, no indication of a hurried exit. The pristine scene did not align with a young woman who had willingly left, nor one who had been forcibly removed after a struggle. Instead, the very quietness of the room suggested something far more insidious, a meticulously planned act executed with a chilling, unseen precision. The silence of that perfectly preserved space, no longer merely an absence of sound, now resonated with a deafening, foreboding message, casting a long, cold shadow over the burgeoning, increasingly complex investigation. With the campus perimeter surveillance yielding only a frustrating blankness, the investigation abruptly shifted, pulling away from the physical landscape and delving into the intricate, ethereal realm of Clara Albright's digital existence. Detective Anya Sharma, Miles Corbin's astute junior partner, took command of this forensic deep dive. For days, she meticulously dissected Clara's phone records, her social media activity, and email accounts, painstakingly sifting through the digital echoes of an 18-year-old's world. It was a painstaking, almost invisible labor, akin to extracting a single vital thread from an immense interwoven tapestry. Yet, from this digital archaeology, a distinct pattern began to materialize. A series of text messages originating from an unknown number on Saturday evening. The very night Clara vanished seized Sharma's attention. The initial exchanges appeared innocuous, mildly flirtatious casual inquiries about Clara's first daylight compliment. But as the hours of the evening wore on, the tenor of these messages subtly warped. They grew more insistent, less conversational, hinting at a persistent desire for a meeting, an invitation Clara seemed to gently but firmly decline. The sender, despite the mask of an unfamiliar number, displayed a disturbing tenacity. A swift, reverse lookup of the number unmasked a name: Ethan Vance. He was a 22-year-old local employed as a delivery driver whose routes frequently wound through the university district. While the name initially held no immediate significance, a deeper probe into his background check unveiled a profoundly disquieting history. Vance possessed a minor criminal record, not for violent felonies, but for a documented pattern of harassment and stalking incidents linked to prior relationships. The reports, though, resolved without severe charges, vividly depicted a man who repeatedly transgressed boundaries, who stubbornly mistook relentless pursuit for genuine interest. This revelation struck Detective Corbin with immediate and chilling force. A young woman disappears, and almost concurrently, a man with a history of obsessive predatory behavior surfaces in her digital sphere, actively attempting to circumvent her clear reluctance. The congruence was far too jarring to dismiss as mere coincidence. The investigative momentum, which had begun to falter in the face of the campus blind spot, surged with an invigorated, grim purpose. Corbin promptly mobilized patrol units, instructing them to canvass every gas station, convenience store, and ATM within a 5-mile radius of Crestwood University, with a specific focus on Saturday night's temporal window. The objective unearthed any surveillance footage of Ethan Vance or his vehicle. It was a tedious, laborious hunt, but eventually a grainy, low-resolution triumph emerged. Footage from a late-night diner situated directly opposite the unmonitored campus perimeter captured a familiar, battered gray sedan. The vehicle, unequivocally Ethan Vance's, idled suspiciously close to the university's blind spot at precisely 11:58 p.m., mere minutes after Clara's last confirmed appearance on campus cameras. The car then abruptly accelerated, vanishing from the frame. The image, though indistinct, sent a palpable chill through the command post. The digital trail had coalesced into undeniable physical evidence. Ethan Vance, a man whose past now cast an ominous shadow, had not only engaged Clara in unsettling digital correspondence that evening, but his vehicle had also been demonstrably present at the exact juncture where Clara Albright had last been accounted for before her inexplicable vanishing. What had appeared a random encounter now solidified into a darker, more meticulously orchestrated design. A profound tension now settled over the room. The disparate pieces of a terrifying puzzle were beginning to interlock, transforming the pervasive mystery surrounding Clara's disappearance into a stark, unnerving reality with a name and a face. The sterile anodyne confines of the interrogation room presented a stark psychological battleground against the mounting anxieties swirling beyond its soundproofed walls. Ethan Vance, brought in directly from his evening delivery route, exuded a carefully constructed composure. He wore the guise of a citizen mildly inconvenienced, yet eager to assist law enforcement. From behind the one-way glass, Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Anya Sharma observed him intently, discerning the subtle, almost imperceptible tells beneath his practiced calm. This was not the raw fear of an innocent, but the guarded vigilance of a man well-versed in navigating suspicion. Inside, Detective Corbin initiated the encounter with a demeanor designed to disarm. His voice remained low, almost avuncular, meticulously devoid of accusation. He sidestepped direct questions about Clara, instead inviting Vance to simply narrate his Saturday evening. Ethan Corbin began leaning slightly across the table, his posture open. "We're simply trying to piece together what happened to Clara Albright. We know your delivery routes often take you through the university area. Could you just walk us through your Saturday evening from when your shift ended?" Vance, settling into the hard-backed chair, offered a polished, almost rote account. "Shift concluded straight home. Spent the rest of the night engrossed in video games." His gaze, unblinking, met Corbin's, a deliberate performance of amenable neutrality. Corbin then gently introduced the first hairline crack in Vance's narrative. "We also have information indicating you were in digital communication with Clara that evening," he stated, his tone flat and uninflected, observing for the slightest tremor. Vance did not flinch. He offered a short, dismissive nod. "Oh, Clara," he mused, as if recalling a fleeting, unimportant acquaintance. "Yeah, I dropped off a pizza at her dorm earlier in the week. She seemed like a nice kid. Just a friendly chat, checking in on her first day. Nothing serious." He carefully minimized the exchanges, rendering them benign, almost perfunctory. His story remained ostensibly airtight, built on a foundation of plausible deniability. Claire sent her parents a text stating she was just getting back to her dorm around midnight. Corbin continued, his voice maintaining its calm, yet now imbued with an almost imperceptible tensile strength. "However, her roommate Lily Chen told us Clara departed an off-campus party nearer to 11:30. That leaves a good 30-minute gap at least." How would you account for that missing time? Ethan Vance's composure, though still holding, betrayed its first sign of strain. A fleeting shadow of irritation flickered across his eyes, swiftly masked. He shifted in his seat, his gaze darting from Corbin's unwavering stare to the stark white walls. "I wouldn't have any idea," he mumbled, a barely audible increase in volume signaling a rising defensiveness. "I was home, like I said, playing video games." His meticulously crafted alibi, once seemingly unassailable, began to acquire the fragile crystalline quality of ice under duress. Corbin pressed, not with overt challenge, but by illuminating the ever-widening gaps. "We've been reviewing a considerable amount of surveillance footage from around campus that night, Ethan. There are a lot of vehicles, a lot of people." The unspoken implication hung heavy in the air, a silent psychological weight descending upon the small room. Vance's jaw visibly tightened. He seemed to shrink, his earlier self-assurance beginning to crumble. His denials grew more strident, laced with an undertone of palpable agitation. "I wasn't there. I wasn't anywhere near the campus after my last delivery," he insisted, his voice now distinctly elevated, a crack in his controlled fade. "You guys have got the wrong man. I don't know what happened to Claire, but it had nothing to do with me." His performance as the cooperative citizen was rapidly dissolving, revealing the agitated, cornered figure beneath. The psychological dance had begun, a calculated game of cat and mouse, where every utterance, every silence, and every minute shift in posture revealed more than the suspect ever intended. The detectives watched patiently as Ethan Vance embarked on the slow, deliberate process of unraveling his own carefully constructed denial. Despite Ethan Vance's agitated denials within the interrogation room, his carefully constructed fade had already begun to fissure, exposing a deeper, unsettling vulnerability beneath. Detectives Corbin and Sharma, undeterred by his feigned innocence, understood that a man's past often illuminated the truth more vividly than his carefully chosen words. With Vance released, pending further inquiry, a calculated strategic move to foster a false sense of security, while a more extensive probe was initiated, the investigation shifted, now dedicated to unearthing the long shadows cast by his history. The minor criminal record unearthed during the preliminary background check proved to be merely the visible tip of an ominous iceberg. Detective Sharma launched into a comprehensive investigation of Vance's digital footprint, beyond his interactions with Clara, diligently reaching out to any individuals linked to his previous relationships. What gradually materialized was a chilling, consistent pattern of behavior, far more disturbing than the handful of dismissible reports had initially suggested. Sarah Evans, a former girlfriend from Vance's high school years, was initially reluctant to speak, her voice tight with a lingering, almost visceral fear. When she finally found the courage, her narrative painted a stark picture of escalating obsession. Following their breakup, Vance had categorically refused to accept the separation, stalking her relentlessly for weeks. "He would just appear," she recounted, her voice barely a whisper, "at my workplace, outside my house. He'd leave strange, unsettling notes on my car. It wasn't overtly violent, but it was absolutely terrifying. It felt like he would never let me go." She described how his unwavering gaze had seemed to follow her everywhere, an insidious, inescapable presence that gnawed at her sense of security. Maria Rodriguez, another ex-partner from a few years later, shared an equally disquieting account, a parallel narrative of insidious control. Her phone, submitted to Detective Sharma, revealed a torrent of manipulative text messages from Vance after she attempted to end their brief relationship. These messages ranged from fervent declarations of undying love to thinly veiled threats of self-harm, all meticulously designed to control and guilt-trip her into remaining with him. He wouldn't let me breathe, Maria recalled, her eyes welling with a wariness that transcended years. He just devoured my autonomy. It was always about what he wanted, what he needed. My feelings were irrelevant. The messages showcased a frightening possessiveness, a pathological inability to process rejection without resorting to psychological coercion. These testimonies, painstakingly gathered through interviews that frequently reopened old painful wounds, coalesced into a chillingly coherent portrait of Ethan Vance. He was not merely a delivery driver with a history of minor infractions. He was a man propelled by profound insecurity, fueled by a pathological desire for control and dominance, particularly over women. Rejection, it appeared, acted as a potent trigger, unmasking a shadowed, more malevolent facet of his psyche. The seemingly random digital contact with Claire, the insistent messages, the suspicious lingering of his car near the campus blind spot, none of these details now appeared coincidental. Instead, they aligned perfectly with a cold, precise blueprint of predation. The quiet town of Willow Creek, once cherished as an idyllic backdrop for new beginnings, began to expose a deeper, more sinister undercurrent, a lurking desperation and dangerous obsession that had silently festered within its unassuming boundaries. For detectives, Corbin and Sharma, the fragmented puzzle of Clara Albright's disappearance was no longer an enigma without a face. It now possessed a chillingly familiar template meticulously molded by Ethan Vance's disturbing past. The investigation had moved beyond mere circumstance. It now confronted a deeply entrenched pattern of calculated, malevolent intent. With Ethan Vance's disturbing past now grimly illuminated, the investigation possessed crucial, albeit chilling, context. Yet the pursuit of justice demanded more than patterns of behavior. It required undeniable physical proof. The momentum of the inquiry was poised for a decisive shift, not through elusive digital breadcrumbs or the unsettling echoes of human obsession, but through the silent, uncompromising verdict of forensic science. Days earlier, immediately following Vance's identification as a person of interest, detectives Corbin and Sharma had secured a warrant to impound and painstakingly examine his battered gray sedan. While the vehicle initially appeared almost preternaturally clean crime scene, technicians approached it with a methodical precision, acutely aware that even the most meticulous perpetrators invariably leave microscopic traces. Under the intense, searching beam of specialized lights, a single minuscule hair fiber emerged, almost camouflaged, deeply woven into the coarse fabric of the passenger seat. The solitary strand, a silent testament to a clandestine encounter, was carefully extracted, meticulously cataloged, and rushed to the state crime lab for an expedited DNA analysis. The results, when they finally reached Detective Corbin's desk, struck with the force of a sudden, brutal impact. The DNA profile, isolated from the hair fiber, yielded a definitive, irrefutable match: Clara Albright. This was the tangible link they had desperately pursued, an undeniable biological thread connecting Ethan Vance directly to the missing student. The case was no longer a complex web of suspicion and circumstantial timelines. It was anchored by hard science, cold and unwavering. News of the breakthrough electrified the entire Willow Creek investigative team, injecting a surge of resolute purpose. Concurrently, a sharp-eyed patrol officer, systematically re-examining the desolate stretch of old maintenance road, bordering the unmonitored campus perimeter, the very blind spot identified in the earlier surveillance footage, stumbled upon another pivotal discovery. Nestled deep within a thorny thicket of blackberry bushes snagged on a stubborn branch lay a small, distinctively patterned button. It was crafted from polished abalone shell reflecting iridescent flashes of blue and green. Sarah Albright had vividly described it during her initial interview, a unique button from Clara's favorite sage green cardigan, the same garment visible in her last known photograph, the very one captured in the fleeting campus security footage. The confluence of these two disparate yet powerfully linked pieces of evidence acted like the final tumblers of a complex lock yielding with a resonant click. The hair fiber unequivocally placed Clara inside Vance's vehicle. The unique button found at the precise location where campus cameras had lost her strongly implied a struggle or a forced removal. What had once been a frustrating, disjointed narrative of digital trails and evasive statements now coalesced into an ironclad chain of evidence drawing an inescapable line from Ethan Vance to Clara Albright's vanishing. Ethan Vance's carefully constructed narrative of innocence fractured and crumbled under the relentless weight of this irrefutable proof. The meticulous work of forensic science had finally given voice to Clara telling a chilling story of abduction and a desperate unseen struggle. For the Albright family, this painful breakthrough, while confirming their darkest, most agonizing fears, simultaneously offered a grim, profound sense of resolution. It transformed a boundless void of torturous uncertainty into a concrete, albeit heart-wrenching pathway toward justice. The overarching mission of the investigation had profoundly shifted. It was no longer merely a search for a missing person, but a focused, unwavering pursuit of accountability for a devastating crime. The sterile hum of the interrogation room seemed to constrict the air itself, amplifying the tension as detectives Corbin and Sharma brought Ethan Vance back to the table. This time, all pretense of a casual conversation had vanished, the gentle probing replaced by an unyielding resolve. Detective Corbin's demeanor, usually a carefully modulated blend of calm and authority, solidified into an inexorable force, his eyes locked on Vance with an unwavering, almost predatory intensity. Cat-and-mouse game was unequivocally over. The hour for undeniable truth had arrived. Corbin squarely placed the forensic report on the table, its crisp white pages a chilling prelude to the grim reality they contained. "Ethan," he began, his voice low but razor-sharp through the silence, "we know Clara Albright was in your car. We have her DNA. A hair fiber meticulously recovered from the passenger seat of your sedan provides an irrefutable match to Clara." Vance's carefully constructed composure finally shattered. A fleeting tremor of fear, instantly eclipsed by a surge of defiance, twisted his features. He recoiled slightly, a sneer forming on his lips. "That's ludicrous. Anyone could have been in my car. I drive for a living." Sharma, her voice clear and precise, then positioned a small, iridescent abalone button beside the report. And this Ethan was found, tangled in the blackberry bushes by the old maintenance road at the exact point where campus security cameras lost sight of Clara. It's from her distinctive sage green cardigan, the one she was wearing that very night. The visual evidence, deceptively small, landed like a potent, undeniable blow. Vance slashed out, pushing his chair back with a violent scrape, a wave of raw agitation replacing his earlier feigned calm. "You're trying to frame me. I know nothing about that. You still have no proof. His voice cracked, a desperate frayed edge replacing his initial bravado. But the proof was formidable, an insurmountable barrier against which Vance's fabrications could no longer stand. Under the relentless, unyielding pressure of the DNA evidence and the physical artifact, the dam of his lies finally ruptured. The torrent of denials gave way to a broken, fragmented confession. He began to speak, his words stumbling at times, contradictory, yet collectively weaving a horrifying narrative. He had spotted Clara walking alone. He had offered her a ride, a seemingly benign gesture that quickly twisted into something sinister. He admitted to driving her to a secluded area near Old Mill Road, a forgotten stretch of winding dirt track known primarily to locals, nestled amidst dense woodland and whispering reeds. There, in the encroaching darkness, Clara Albright's bright future was brutally extinguished. The next morning, beneath a leaden overcast sky, a somber procession of police vehicles, forensic units, and K-9 teams slowly wound its way down the narrow, overgrown path to Old Mill Road. The air hung thick with an oppressive silence, punctuated only by the crunch of gravel under tires and the hushed, urgent commands of the officers. Each detective, each officer carried the heavy burden of Vance's confession, a sickening premonition of the grim discovery awaiting them. It was there, amidst the rustling reeds and partially obscured by dense undergrowth near the sluggish current of Willow Creek, that the agonizing search for Clara Albright reached its definitive tragic conclusion. Her body was found, a heartbreakingly small figure, a poignant testament to the unimaginable violence inflicted upon her. In moments such as these, the clinical detachment inherent in investigative work yields to a profound shared grief. The discovery of a life violently ended, especially one so young and full of promise, inflicts a wound not merely upon a family, but upon the very core of a community's fragile sense of safety and justice. For Sarah and David Albright, the confirmation of their deepest, most agonizing fears delivered a devastating physical blow. The boundless void of corrosive uncertainty that had consumed them for days was abruptly filled by a concrete, soul-shattering truth. There would be no joyous reunion, no future marine biologist. Only an enduring ache, a bottomless chasm of loss that would forever define the contours of their lives. Yet amidst the profound despair, the somber discovery also heralded a grim form of resolution. The torturous agony of "Where is Clara?" had found its heartbreaking answer, setting the first painful yet necessary steps on the arduous path toward accountability and justice. Months later, as autumn's chill draped itself across Willow Creek, the town's unassuming courthouse became the reluctant stage for a grim new act, the trial of Ethan Vance. The proceedings, a somber excavation of darkness, compelled all present to confront the brutal reality of Clara Albright's final hours, a case that had captivated and horrified the community in equal measure. Sarah and David Albright, their countenances etched with a grief that time had deepened rather than erased, occupied the front row of the public gallery. Their unwavering presence spoke volumes, a silent testament to Clara's vibrant life and its agonizing truncation. Each day, they assumed their seats, a visible resolve, hardening their posture against the crushing weight of the legal battle, their gazes inexorably drawn to the man accused of demolishing their world. The courtroom, typically an arena of detached legal procedure, now thrummed with a palpable heightened tension, every seat filled by observers and media representatives. The prosecution, helmed by the formidable district attorney, Ms. Evelyn Reed, presented a remorseless and precisely constructed narrative of the crime. Her opening statement, delivered with a calm yet utterly authoritative cadence, painstakingly reconstructed the fragments of that fateful Saturday night. She painted a chilling tableau of cold, calculated predation, starkly juxtaposing Clara's youthful innocence with Vance's insidious intent. "This case," Reed asserted, her voice echoing with chilling clarity throughout the hushed room, "is not about a sudden, tragic error. It is about a premeditated act, systematically executed by a man who targeted an innocent young woman, extinguishing her future before it had truly blossomed." Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Anya Sharma stood among the first to offer testimony, their professional exactitude forming the bedrock of the prosecution's argument. Corbin, his voice unwavering, recounted the desperate initial search, the troubling revelation of the timeline gap, and the arduous process of pinpointing Ethan Vance. Sharma followed, detailing the digital trail, the progressively insistent texts, and the pivotal surveillance footage that initially positioned Vance's vehicle at the campus perimeter's critical blind spot. Every piece of evidence, from the microscopic hair fiber to Clara's iridescent abalone button, was meticulously presented to the jury, forming an undeniable reconstruction of the crime that left no room for speculative doubt. Ethan Vance, now shorn of his earlier pretense of bewildered cooperation, remained largely impassive at the defense table. He seldom met the Albrights' eyes, though an occasional fleeting glance of defiance would flicker across the courtroom in their direction. His defense counsel, a sharp but visibly outmatched public defender, strove to inject uncertainty, challenging the chain of custody for key evidence and questioning the voluntariness of Vance's initial fragmented admissions. Yet the sheer weight and unwavering cohesion of the prosecution's evidence seemed to overwhelm these efforts with relentless force. The courtroom itself transformed into a searing crucible where the raw, agonizing truth of Clara's final moments was brutally reenacted, forcing her family to endure their nightmare in excruciating detail, their anguish forging an unyielding resolve for justice. After weeks of harrowing testimony, of scientific evidence, meticulously presented, and emotional accounts, painfully recalled, the jury in the trial of Ethan Vance finally retired to deliberate. The waiting period, an agonizing stretch of hours, felt like an eternity for the Albright family. Sarah gripped David's hand, her knuckles white, her gaze fixed intently on the closed doors behind which Clara's fate and Vance's accountability were being decided. The air in the courtroom, thick with anticipation, was punctuated only by hushed whispers and the rustle of news reporters' notebooks. When the jury re-entered, their expressions inscrutable, a palpable stillness descended upon the courtroom. The clerk's voice, clear and resonant, cut through the tension, announcing the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Ethan Vance, guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder." A collective gasp, a ripple of hushed relief swept through the public gallery. Sarah Albright visibly slumped her body, finally releasing the immense crushing burden she had carried for months. Tears, long held back, streamed silently down her face, not solely of sorrow in that moment, but of a profound, fragile liberation. David, his face a mask of weary anguish, simply closed his eyes, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. During the victim impact statements, Sarah Albright, her voice trembling yet imbued with an indomitable resolve, rose to address Ethan Vance directly. She stood tall, her eyes burning with a raw, incandescent grief, meeting his impassive gaze across the courtroom. "You took our light, Our beautiful Claire, she began each word a slow, deliberate hammer blow. You stole a future vibrant with promise, a lifetime of love, laughter, and discovery. You extinguished her dreams of studying the ocean, of making her mark on this world. You, Ethan Vance, must never again be allowed to walk the earth as a free person. Her words, direct and accusatory, gave voice to the voiceless, defining Clara, not by her tragic end, but by the brilliant life she had lived and the immeasurable void her absence had carved. David Albright followed his voice, initially a cracked whisper, then strengthening with the raw force of his paternal love and devastating loss. He spoke of the gaping chasm in their family, a wound that would never truly heal. Every morning we wake up to an emptiness that screams her name. He articulated, his gaze fixed on Vance. Every night we search the stars for her, a future stolen, a joy forever lost. You condemned us to a life sentence of pain. Their statements, stark and unvarnished, served not merely as pleas for harsh sentencing, but as an unwavering demand for recognition of the devastating human cost. The judge, his voice heavy with solemnity, then delivered the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Ethan Vance remained impassive, his expression unreadable, offering a final performance of unrepentant denial. For the Albright family, the verdict delivered no true joy, for nothing could restore Clara to them. Yet it provided a profound, albeit somber form of justice. The relentless pursuit of accountability had reached its resolution, ensuring that the man who had stolen their daughter's future would spend the rest of his days incarcerated, a small, cold comfort in the face of an enduring, fathomless grief. Willow Creek, though painfully, began its slow process of healing, forever etched with the indelible memory of Clara Albright. Her parents, Sarah and David, channeled their profound grief into establishing the Clara Albright Foundation, a tireless beacon for campus safety and victim support, striving to ensure no other family endured their torment. Galvanized by the tragedy, Crestwood University significantly enhanced its security measures and swiftly implemented mandatory safety workshops for all incoming freshmen. Old Mill Road, once an obscure track, now embraced a somber stone memorial bearing Clara's name. Thus, her vibrant, cruelly abbreviated future transmuted into a powerful, enduring legacy, a poignant call for perpetual vigilance against the shadows that lurk unseen, and an eloquent testament to the unbreakable strength of love against the backdrop of profound, immeasurable loss. In the shadow of ultimate loss, the quest for justice and the resilience of human love shine as unyielding beacons. If the relentless pursuit of justice for a life unlived and the dedication to uncovering truth from the shadows resonates with you, subscribe to Shadow Files for more profound stories. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell.